You will learn about the press regulations and East India Company, Vernacular Press Act, and also about press and national movement. In 1780, the press was introduced in India by the Europeans, and the first newspaper in India was the Bengal Gazette. There was no censorship over the press in the period of inception. The main news item of the early press was to expose the misdeeds of the East India Company officials. The East India Company wanted the press to release opinions in its favor. There was an increase in the number of newspapers both in English and vernacular over a period of time. The East Indian Company started interfering in the functioning of the press. In 1799, the Censor Act was passed by Lord Wellesley. The Calcutta Supreme Court passed regulations over the press in 1820s. In 1823, the Licensing Regulation Act was passed by John Adam. According to that, every publisher should get a license from the government. There was a lot of criticism against the government control over the press. Many native newspapers strongly criticized the exploitative nature of the colonial government after the 1857 revolt. In order to stop the propaganda carried out in the vernacular newspapers, Lord Lytton passed the Vernacular Press Act in 1878. According to this act, when a report was judged as seditious, the newspaper would be warned, and if the warning was ignored, the press was liable to be seized and the printing machinery confiscated. The nationalists considered the act as discriminatory and fought for its repeal. The press played an important role in our national movement. The nationalists used press as a powerful tool to reach the common man. The British Indian government's attitude towards Indian press was completely unfavorable. The government resorted repressive measures to control the work of the press. The press brought out many misdeeds and exposed the misrule of the government. Most of the nationalist leaders had their own newspapers to raise their voice. Balagangadhar Tilak wrote a series of articles in his paper Kesari in 1907. The government decided to control the nationalist press. This attempt by the government made them unpopular and led to wide militant protest. You have learned the press was introduced by the Europeans in India and there was no censorship in the early phase. The press played a vital role in exposing the East India Company's misrule. The government came out with many repressive measures to control the native press. The Vernacular Press Act 1878 of Lord Lytton was the most controversial act. The press played an important role during the national movement.